Hello everyone, welcome to your tutorial on formatting a balance sheet. So in your notes you'll see there's more information on what a balance sheet is. It's an official financial statement that all companies put together, and that financial statement shows items of value that the company owns. Those are known as assets, the debts of a company, which are liabilities, and then the owner's investment and stake in the business, which is called equity. So again, you'll see examples, and we'll be working on this throughout the course, not just in this unit, but until the final day of the course, to be honest with you. What you'll find in accounting is we start at the letter A and we finish at the letter Z, and we never don't build on the previous unit. So it's really important as you're learning this to redo it and redo it until you understand it. So the purpose of today is not necessarily to get into the definitions side of the balance sheet, but more the formatting if you're using a spreadsheet. I'm going to be doing this using Google Sheets because that is the program that our board has approved. You can use it. You can use this tutorial and apply it to Microsoft Excel or another spreadsheet program of your choice, and generally a lot of the functions will be the same. So let's get started. I'm going to start by just inputting all of my information, and then we'll focus on doing a lot of the formatting and making things pretty side of things. So at the top of a balance sheet is always the company's name. So let's call it ABC Company, and I'll make spelling mistakes right this, I don't care. And then we are doing a balance sheet. So the second line is the type of financial statement. Maybe I'll blow this up a bit so we can see it a little bit easier. And then finally the date. So I'm just going to choose a random date, July 31st. And then what you'll notice sometimes in accounting, instead of putting in the date, whatever the date is, you'll often see it'll be 20 dash dash. And if you're ever in a course where there was a textbook involved, you'll often see the dash dash. To be honest with you, that is just so that the textbook doesn't age, although it usually does age quite well. But so we will often be using the 20 dash dash to show the year. So we're done the top. It's the company, the type of financial statement, and then the year. And we're going to format that more a little bit later. Okay, so on the left-hand side of our balance sheet is our assets. We list our assets. So I'm going to type in assets. And then we do something called order of liquidity, which is how quickly we can turn our assets into cash. You will get used to this as the course goes on. It'll be a little bit foreign to you now, but don't worry, you'll get the drift of it very quickly. So liquidity, cash is obviously already liquid because it's already cash, so we just need to go to the bank and get it. So we'll put in cash. Often in courses you may see this called bank. It's the same thing. And then we're going to do accounts receivable. Accounts receivable are that's money that is owed to us by our customers. Again, that's quite liquid because they'll pay us usually within a month. Supplies. And then I get into something called fixed assets. As we get into classified financial statements, we'll talk about these a little bit more. For now, let's just do land, building, and equipment. Okay, so I've listed my assets. Now, if you're not familiar with spreadsheets, you'll notice here that my accounts receivable kind of spilled over a bit into cell B, and then this is 6. So I don't have to worry about that. So I don't have to cut and paste that. All I can do, or all I need to do, is if I want, I can go between the letter A and B, and my cursor you'll see is an arrow. It's going to turn into a bit of a cross with a left and right arrow. At that point, I can either double click, and it's going to automatically make it so that accounts receivable fits in, or I can also go in between, hold down my mouse pad, and then I can drag it and make it as large as I want. So you can do either or, I don't care. All right, so let's say we have $10,000 in cash and $6,000 in receivables and a couple $1,000 bucks. We'll keep the numbers nice and easy. Our land is worth $300,000. Our building's worth another $200,000, and we've got $25,000 worth of equipment. So let's just leave it there for now. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. Okay, on the right-hand side, we actually list two things. We list our liabilities, which I always spell wrong. I think I got it right. There we go. Okay, so liabilities is money that the business owes, or the debts of the business. So I'm going to do accounts payable. These are bills that we need to pay our suppliers. We've got a bank loan and a mortgage, which is a loan for a building. And then we will put in total liabilities. I'm going to leave a space. Then we're going to put in owner's equity. Owner's equity is the stake that the owner has in the business. So we finance our assets either through taking out loans or using our own money. There's no other way that we can pay for our assets. And then for this section here, we're going to put in the owner's name, first initial, period, last name, comma, and then the word capital is the account where we're going to show that. And we'll build the owner's equity section as we go on in the course, but let's just call this person A, alphabet, comma, capital. And then finally, we are going to have a line that says total liabilities and owner's equity. And then we're going to match that total assets. Okay, so the structure's there. I'm going to add a few numbers here as well. We've got a couple $1,000 to pay there, a $15,000 bank loan, and our mortgage is for $350,000. Now we're going to do a little bit of math, some formulas, and then we're going to make everything look pretty. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we don't use our calculator, we don't use our phone to do this. The spreadsheet will actually do this for you, and there's a few ways we can do this. I want to add all of these numbers up because that's going to tell me how much I have in terms of the stuff that I own. So to do that, there's a couple things we can do. We can go to this little sideways M thing. That's the function button in Sheets, and Excel has the same thing. If we drop that down, we choose that first option, which is sum. Take a math class, it means to add together. So if I click on the sum button, you're going to see I get this little wacky equals sum bracket, underline, close bracket. That's saying, the Excel sheet is saying, or the spreadsheet is saying, what is it that you want me to add up? So I will go to this $10,000. I usually kind of float into the middle of the cell. I hold down my mouse pad or my, whatever you have, your mouse, and then I highlight down to equipment, and then I hit enter, and it will add it up for me. So if you look up here in the bar, it doesn't actually show 543,000. It just shows that formula. So I'll show you how to do that again. So I go sum button, I choose sum, and then I go to my first number, I highlight to my last number, I hit enter, and then I've got my number, which is $543,000. Another way you can do it, there's a shortcut or a quick way. You can just type it out. So every time we want to do math, we just go equals on the keyboard, and the spreadsheet will say, okay, we're going to do some math. And I knew it was the word sum, and then there was a bracket. So I can just put in manually what I did. I highlight my numbers, and I close the bracket. And I've done the exact same thing as hitting the function. There's no difference. You just do whatever you're most comfortable with. Okay, let's do the same thing for our liabilities. I'm comfortable doing this, so it's quicker for me. So I just did the equal sum thing. If you wanted to, you could float over here and do it there as well. The autofill we don't want to do, so thank you, but no thank you. And now let's see, a bit of formatting here. I should have made this larger. That's good. Okay, so in our notes and in the opening parts of this course, we say that we can only finance our assets two ways. Either we borrow the money, which is this, or we use our own money, which is this. So I know that I have, I'm just going to highlight this for a second. Don't do this in your actual spreadsheet. I know that I have $543,000 worth of assets. I know that I have taken on $367,000 in debt. And I know that this number here, so I'm going to show you how to wrap this in just a second, but this number for total liabilities and owner's equity has to be $543,000. So the way I do that is I take my total assets, I subtract my total liabilities, and that has to be my capital because my investment plus the money I borrowed has to equal the value of my total assets. So to do that on the spreadsheet, you're going to hit the equal sign on your spreadsheet first. The equal sign again indicates that we're going to do some math. I'm going to click on that. $543,000. Note I didn't write out 543. I'm clicking on the cell once, and it will show here equals B14 for me in this scenario. Second thing I want to do is I want to click the minus sign on my keyboard, which is just to the right of the zero, because that's obviously the subtraction symbol that we use. I'm going to click once on my 367, and I'm going to hit enter. So my capital, which means my stake or my investment in my assets, is $176,000. I'm going to take this color scheme away for us. All right, the last thing I want to do is I want to check my math. So if I'm right, it's called a balance sheet, which means the left side must equal the right side. my total liabilities and owner's equity should come out to $543. So I'm going to do some math. I'm going to go equals. I'm going to click once on the $367,000 because that's the money that I borrowed. That's my debt. And then I'm going to hit the plus sign, which is shift, and then above the equal sign. You should see the plus sign. I'm going to click once on my capital, and I'm going to hit enter. And ta-da, $543,000. So my left side equals my right side. That's how we do a balance sheet, but we aren't done formatting it yet. There are a number of things we need to do. So my advice to you is anytime you're kind of not understanding a concept, so say you didn't understand the sum thing, just pause this video, rewind it, and watch it. That's the beauty of this tutorial, is you can watch this as many times as you need to, or you can watch whichever section you need to whenever you want. All right, so last thing we're going to do is formatting. So I want to center my titles, and to do that, I've got four columns here, A, B, C, and D. If I highlight A1, which is where ABC Company is, I hold down my mouse pad and I drag it all the way over to D. So again, A1 all the way to D1. I now have that section. I want to say I would like this to be its own section, so one giant cell. To do that, I go up to my bar here with all of my different functions, and I'm going to choose this one that looks like a box with two arrows facing in, and I'm going to click it, or I can drop it down and click merge all. Now you'll see I have one giant cell. B1, C1, and D1 no longer exist. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to center it. And you should know how to center things because really we use that, I think, since grade 1 or grade 2. And then I'm going to do that for my balance sheet. So I'm going to merge my cells and center them. And then for my date as well. Whoops, I forgot to merge. It's okay, you can make mistakes. There we go. So my title is now correct. Now, I like to do this. You don't need to do this. You can format however you want. Oh, I just noticed that all of my things, this is the beauty of doing tutorials, is you're allowed to make mistakes and then correct them. So I actually didn't line up my stuff. There we go. Now it's lined up. So I just did a cut and paste. I'm not going to redo this video. Well, I'm a human. It's okay if we make mistakes. So I want my titles, which are my assets, my liabilities, and my owner's equity, to stand out a bit. You can format this however you want. I'm going to bold them. So I'm just going to hold down my control key and highlight my titles, and then just go over to bold. And then you can kind of see them, but you can center them. You can underline them. You can do whatever you want. All right. So there's step one. Now, step two is we want to format our numbers, and then we're going to have some dollar signs and underlines that we need to do. So I'm going to highlight all of my numbers here. This is a multi-step thing, but the way I do it is I go over to my number thing, which is more formats, 1, 2, 3. I drop it down. I choose number. Some people choose accounting. I like to choose number. I'm going to do that, and then you'll notice that our numbers now have a comma in it and some decimal points. I don't like using the decimal points, so the last step I would do is I'm going to go to this little arrow here. It says decrease decimals. I'm going to decrease it by 2. I'm going to go over and I'm going to do the same thing here. So drop down my number thing, I'm going to choose number, and then I'm going to get rid of my decimals. Okay, so numbers are starting to look good. In accounting, the rule is we put a dollar sign on the first number and the last number in each column. So column B and column C, the first number and the last number. So to do that, we just click on the number once, put the dollar sign on it, and then get rid of the decimal places. I tend to hold down the control button for the first and last just so I can format all of these all at once. So dollar sign, and then just get rid of that. So I've got dollar signs on my first and last. Beautiful, things are looking great. And then the last thing we do is underlines and double underlines. So underlines, a good piece of advice I would give to you is throw an underline when you know there's some math happening below that number. So I know that there was math here, math here, math here. So I'm going to throw in an underline under equipment, under mortgage, and under capital. Now, in Google Sheets, you'll notice there is no underline symbol for us to use, and that might be problematic as we get moving forward. So I'm going to show you a little workaround that I do. I think in Excel you just hit underline and you can double underline. In sheets, it's a little bit more challenging. So here's what I do. I'm going to put an underline here, one underneath my mortgage, and one underneath my capital. So those are the three areas where I'm going to do a single underline. And instead of doing an underline, what I do is I actually go to the borders. So I drop that down, and then I go to the bottom row and I choose the second last option, which is a bottom border. And what I've done is I've essentially done an underline. So I'll show you that again. So I click on my equipment because there's some math below that. I click on my mortgage and I click on my capital. I drop down this menu and then I choose that. Then the final thing we need to do is we need to do a double underline as well. So a double underline indicates that our column is done. We have no more math to do. So to do it in this case, I'm going to highlight my 543 on both sides. You can do it individually as well, doesn't matter. I'm going to go back to my border and I'm going to choose that bottom border option again. But this time I'm also going to take another step. I'm going to drop this little menu down that says border style. I'm going to choose the last option, which is a double underline. And then as I click away from there, you will see, and again, if I blow this up a little bit, let's blow this up to 175 and see if we can see it. Yes, perfect. So you can see that we have a double underline here and double underline there. Now, the last thing that I want to do is I cannot see my owner's equity here. Very easy fix. We just click on it once. We go up to our little menu bar here, and then this option here which says text wrapping, if I drop down that menu and I choose the second option, you'll see it's kind of an arrow underneath a line. That means wrap text, and what it will do is it'll actually put words one on top of the other. And so there you go. Let's summarize very quickly. Company name, financial statement, and the date. That's at your top. You're going to merge those lines so that they line up to the 4 columns of your balance sheet. On the left-hand side, we're going to put in the title, which is assets. We're going to list our assets in order of liquidity, and then we're going to have some fixed assets that we'll talk about later in the course. All good. We then put in liabilities, list our liabilities with the total liability, throw in the title owner's equity, and put in the capital. FYI, this is the section that students struggle on the most. So if you struggle understanding that, don't worry, you are in the majority of students that take introductory accounting courses. So it's going to be, the title is owner's equity, just like liabilities and assets are a title. You're going to put in the owner's name, comma, capital, and then we're going to put in total liabilities and owner's equity. On the same row, we're going to put in total assets, and then we throw in our numbers. We format our numbers using this little 1, 2, 3 thing. We do the math, so sum function to figure out our math. Assets minus liabilities is our capital if you're not given that number. And then we put in a $sign on the first and last by using that little thing there. We put in our underlines using the border function, and then double underlines using the border function, and then formatting the border to a double underline. And that is how you do a balance sheet. One final thing you could do if you are a bit nitpicky is we can see that our words are on the bottom of the line. If you want, you can highlight your whole spreadsheet by clicking that little box to the left, and then go to this little vertical alignment button, and you can align. If you click the middle, you'll notice that it put it in the middle, or if you want, you can put it to the top. So that's how you would format where your numbers fall within a cell. So there it is. That's a balance sheet for you, and be looking. I'll be putting a lot of tutorials up on this course to support your learning.